Hello everyone, I'll be doing another problem from 10 days of JavaScript. Day 8, create a button. But this time it's going to be a little bit different format. I'm experimenting for the sake of everyone's time. I have the answer prepared, just to type it all out takes time too, so to respect that, I'll probably tell you how I got the answers, and let's begin. So here's what happened. So our task is that in the editor, we want to create a clickable button with the following properties. It has an ID of button. The button's initial text label is 0, but after each click, it increments by 1. We call it the button's text label inner properties innerHTML property. Width is 96 pixels, height is 48 pixels, font size is 24 pixels, and it has this information you can freeze to understand how this works. Okay, this is talking about submission, which is why I'm telling you why I'm giving the answer right away. So here's how we should start first. So there are 3 files that were given. I think in the old websites, they usually have 3 types of files, which is like the CSS file, the JavaScript file, and the HTML file itself. If I remember correctly, I probably should have studied this before I made the video, is that the HTML is almost like the skeleton of what will be in the website itself. And usually it references the content, which is usually located in the body. Oh yeah, so HTML files is usually structured with this header tag, and it has HTML tags that will enclose the contents that will be in the website. The body contains literally the type of content you'll see on the website and the type of behavior that will be working within it. Usually, to reference that behavior, we have something called script tags. The script tags reference the type of behavior that will be enacted via using the source property, which I included right here. Since I'm using a JavaScript file in the JS directory, I labeled it as such, and I specified that the text is JavaScript. And you can see there's other types. I think it's just only JavaScript that I know of that is popularly used. Now ahead is talking about the properties of the content of the website. What I mean by properties usually means by how it looks. In this case, it's CSS, which tells how the elements will be kind of displayed. And then I reference it as a style sheet. And I pull that information from the directory of CSS, and the file is called button.css. And the type of content I specify again is text in the CSS file. So now we have that in order. We have the content, specify the behavior here, how it will be stylistically affecting the content is within the CSS, usually within the head tag format. Now, let's look into the first part. We want to have the button's ID as button, and let's just look at the style properties first. It's usually easier to define. So it has all these properties right here. You could put these properties in the CSS folder. As I mentioned before, the CSS controls the style. So this is important here. I specified the width as 96 pixels, etc., like all that information. I think CSS has specific keys that you have to use in order to have those values reflect the style correctly within the file. And since the ID is button, I have to prefix it with the hashtag and then label it as button. Therefore, anytime an element references this ID of button, it will apply these styles into the content itself. Now, there are different ways you can lay out the styles within a CSS file. If it's dot, it's going to be the class is button, and other elements could use that class. In this case, it's ID, so I have to use a hashtag. Now, for JavaScript, note have the behavior of like its initial text label is 0, and it increments by 1 each time. I go to my JavaScript file, and here's what I do. First, I create a variable that creates that element itself. This is the element used to create the element within the document, or in this case, within the HTML file, and it's called button because that's exactly what we need. Now we initialize the property of that value. In this case, we want to make sure that innerHTML has a value of 0. Now, regardless of whether I put 0 as a number or within quotations, I think it usually references this as this HTML as an HTML string. So remember, this is going to be playing an important role later, because now when we implement the behavior for the onClick method, now this is how you implement the method onClick for that element of button. I add this function, the innerHTML. Every time, like, I would increment by 1 as per se when you click on it. If I remove this button, if I remove this, I'm just gonna go and, like, even if I specify, like, okay, it's a number, it should be easy. This innerHTML will be incremented if I just do button.innerHTML plus 1 and reassign it back to that innerHTML value, and it should update it as moving up 1 value. However, now I hit this render right here. If I do that, once I click on it, you see it actually appends it as a string value because it's treated as an HTML string. Oh shoot! Oh shoot! Sorry. You can see what's happening. So I actually have to cast that button's innerHTML value as a number by using literally the casting syntax number and encapsulate it with the innerHTML. So now when I render it, more things to include. I want to make sure this element has a specific ID so that when this element is created, its style would be appeared as what is defined in the CSS file, which, as I explained before, has the width, height, and font size of these values. And okay, and now it will append this value into the document. It takes this button and appends it to the document like that. And so that once, if you put in the body, it'll right away initialize with the value of 0 and be added to the body right away. And now when we render it, since its number is casted and added by 1 and reassigned, it's going to be incremented as expected. And I think if we went to the submission, I think it's all passed. Let's see, all 20 points accepted. If you view the results, it shows you the types of scenarios it's tested with. So that's how it works. I hope you guys like this content. I hope this makes sense. And please like and subscribe if you find this content helpful. And if not, ask those questions below and I'll see if I can get to it. Or help your other colleagues if they have questions and you can explain it yourself if you can. Otherwise, guys, stay healthy.